Welcome to the Head Trash Show. My name is Alexia Leachman and I'm the founder of Head Trash, home to the new and unique head trash clearance method that removes unwanted negative thoughts, feelings and emotions quickly and effectively so that you can achieve clarity, confidence and contentment in your life. My goal with this podcast is to teach you how to create some headspace by helping you to unpick what's blocking you and sharing some tips and how-tos for clearing it. Tune in every week as I share simple strategies to help you to achieve confidence and clarity in your life and business. To find out how to clear your head trash quickly and effectively using our unique method, pop over to headtrash.com to get our free download and subscribe for our free head trash clearance updates. And now for the show. Hello and welcome back to the Head Trash Show. This is me, your host, Alexia Leachman. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, if you joined me on the first podcast of 2014, you would have heard Chris Milbank put his case forward about why goals suck. And he had a point. I think you'll agree. Well, maybe you didn't. But today I'd like to put the opposite view in because yes, we do like opposites here at Head Trash. And so today I've got Adrian Peck joining me to put the case forward as to why goals rock. Now, Adrian, you would have heard him last week because he was talking all about getting you motivated and getting back to exercise. But the reason I've got Adrian back on the show as well is because Adrian and I are doing an event together. So if you're based in the UK, you might be interested in coming to this event, which is a 2-day weekend event called the Big Head Trash Clear Out. It's all the details are on the website and it's in the middle of February, like the 15th and 16th of February. It's a 2-day, full day event over the weekend where you can literally come along and clear your stuff. So we're going to be sharing loads of brilliant techniques, loads of tools and stuff that you can literally use and clear stuff on the day, but take that stuff away with you so you can get rid of it. So that's why I thought I'll get Adrian back on. We'll have a little bit of a chit chat about the event and then he can put his case forward about why goals are so important, because yes, they are. Yes, goals can suck, but they can also rock. And it's really important to understand the good side and the bad side of goals so you can get it right. So now over to the time when I spoke to Adrian all about goals. Hello, Adrian, and welcome back to the Head Trash Show.
Hello, Alexia. Thank you for having me back.
No worries. Thank you so much for coming back and talking about goals. So I was really keen to get the other side of goals, and I think you'll be somebody brilliant to help us with that. But before we crack on and talk about goals, I really want to talk about the event that we're both doing for Head Trash.
Yes.
So we're going to be doing an event in February called the Big Head Trash Clear Out. Now, when who do you think this event is for, Adrian?
Well, this event is for anybody that gets stressed easily, people that get overwhelmed, maybe people that find themselves comfort eating, comfort drinking, that kind of thing, lacking confidence, maybe the self-esteem is very low, or they want more direction out of life. They want to learn how to set goals so they can achieve them consistently, and then people that procrastinate as well. So this event is for everybody who just wants to get rid of
the head trash.
The head trash. Any negative emotions that they've got going off. We will clear all this out at the event and then we'll put some good stuff back in for them.
Absolutely. So we're going to be, because you've got some really good head trash clearance techniques under your belt, and I have too. So one of the things that we really want to do with this event is to just impart some really simple techniques and strategies and tips that people can use straight away to just clear their stuff. So it's going to be really easy to implement and for people to take stuff away, isn't it? That's our intention.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to teach them some very simple techniques that they can take away with them after the weekend, and they can use them on a daily basis when required.
And the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is when people book on this event, the first thing they do when they book their ticket is get a head trash clearance prep workbook to start helping them to start thinking through what their head trash is so they can come really well prepared to be clearing stuff. Because the last thing you want on an event like that is people going, oh, I can't think of anything that I need to work on, So to really help people to prepare to get the very best out of it. But also we're giving away a ton of audio stuff, aren't we? As well?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
You're giving away, what products are you giving away?
I am going to give away 3 hypnosis products. One is sleep, one is weight control, and one is motivation to exercise.
Fantastic. So, and I'm going to be giving away stuff to help people with stress and anxiety and depression. So those really, you know, those collections of products alone, I think, make attending the event brilliantly worthwhile. But anyway, so that's
Absolutely, yeah.
That's a bit of it. Is there anything else I've missed about the event that you think's worth sharing?
No, I don't think so. I think we've about covered everything there.
Brilliant. And the other thing to say is there is a discounted ticket available till the end of January. Now, this event is being held in Nottingham in the UK. So if you want to come to this big head trash clear out event, it's a 2-day weekend event with myself and Adrian. And it's £197 if you book before the end of January. Otherwise, the price goes up.
Yes.
So that's enough of that. So right now, back to goals. Now, I had Chris Milbank on the show at the beginning of the year just to open up with a bit of a controversial view on goals. And it was all about why goals are bad.
Yeah.
But I'm really keen to have, to present a balanced view. And fundamentally, I appreciate that goals are important. And I'd really just like your perspective, because you're very much somebody that works a lot with goals, because you work with sports people. And
yes,
very much about goals. So, just to sort of kick us off, really, why do you think goals are so important? Why are they so great?
Goals are great because they give direction. They give people direction as to what it is that they want to achieve in life. And also, goals provide a motivation. They provide a purpose to get out of bed in the morning to go and achieve something. Now, what you just said is correct. I work with sports people, and I've done for many, many years, and we do a lot around goal setting. But I'm gonna make the talk very generic. So it's not just going to be about sports people. It's going to be about how somebody can set goals in such a way that they can achieve them in a consistent way. I think sometimes goals can get a bad rep is because people do not set the goal in a way that motivates them enough and doesn't make it consistent.
Right, and so that's where they can be damaging, or they can start creating feelings of, oh, I'm no good, I can never achieve my goal. That's
correct, yes. Right. Maybe they set the goal that's far too big for them to achieve. And what people tend to do is, it's not that the person fails, it's that the goal fails. There's a fine line there. Just because a goal fails does not mean the individual has failed. Okay. But sometimes if somebody doesn't achieve their goal, it can demotivate them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's probably where goals for some people seem as though it's not worth doing. But also what's really important is, when I speak to a lot of people about goal setting, they always want to set goals around a state.
Right, what do you mean by a state?
Well, they want to be happier. They want to be prouder of themselves. They want to love themselves more. Now, you cannot set a state as a goal. A goal is something that's time specific, and it takes action to achieve. Whereas a state, you can change your state straight away.
Right.
Okay, you don't work towards a state. You can actually change a state straight away just by using some of the very simple techniques that we're actually going to be doing this weekend.
Okay.
So people can control their state. Because some people say to me, oh, when I've achieved that goal, I'll be happier. When I've lost all that weight, I'll love myself. When I've achieved a certain amount of money, I will be proud of myself. So it doesn't work like that. So goal setting towards a state is probably why some people fail.
Right.
It's because a state is not a goal.
And you mentioned time specific earlier, and that just reminds me of goals when I was in business. It's about creating SMART objectives, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and then time bound.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but not everybody's got a background in business. So I guess a lot of people will be setting goals that don't have those features.
Yes, that's correct.
Makes a great goal, doesn't it?
Yeah, because a great goal is all how you word it. You word that goal correctly, then it will kickstart the unconscious mind to help you achieve that goal. Because some people say to me, oh, I just like to go with the flow. But if you think about it, water has to go downhill to flow. Okay. Now, yes, and that water might end up in a nice, calm river. Also, that water might end up going down a waterfall.
Right.
Okay, so if people don't set goals, they are playing with luck.
Okay.
And things might work out for them great, or they might not. But what a goal does is it gives you a fighting chance to get what it is that you want.
And what do you think there's a difference at all between maybe a goal and an intention?
Well, a goal has to start with something, and an intention is a good way to kickstart a goal.
Right, okay.
So what it is, so the goal setting that we're going to be talking about is how to get to that intention, how to get to that purpose, because that is a good goal on its own.
Right.
It's just that how do you get there? Okay, and that's what goal setting is all about. It's all about getting there. Because if you went to a train station, went up to the kiosk and said, I want a ticket, but I don't know where I'm going. Okay, that's no good. So having goals gives you a direction. Okay. Now, when I work with sports people or anybody to that fact when doing a goal, this is the rule I set out. I say to them, if a 6-year-old child can understand the goal, then you're halfway there. And then you've worded it correctly. Because a lot of people set very ambiguous goals. Things like, I want to earn more money.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's a good goal, okay, but it's not specific enough.
Yeah.
Your goal has to be specific. And this is the reason why. Goals are for your unconscious mind. Your conscious mind sets the goal, but it's your unconscious mind that will lead you to achieving the goal. Now, if you say to your unconscious mind, I want more money, you could walk down the street tomorrow and find 10 pence on the floor. Your unconscious mind has found you more money, okay? So that's why being very specific around your goals is really important. So instead of just like saying to yourself, I want more money, say to yourself, I want to earn an extra £50,000, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's specific. And it's also very simple. Okay. So keep it very specific and keep it very simple.
Now, you mentioned more about the subconscious and how goals are important. Would you mind just expanding on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, sure. At the back of your head, you've got something that's called a reticular activating system. And its job is to filter out 99.9% of everything that's going off around you. And that has to happen, because if you was aware of everything that was going off around you through all your senses, you'd go crackers. So it's a good thing that it's actually filtered down. So the thing is, you're left with this 1% of something that the mind needs to focus on, or the mind does focus on. And it works a bit like this. Let's say you bought a brand new car, and you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden you start to see that same car over there, over there, and over there. Now, those cars were there before, but because your attention or your reticular activating system is now focusing on that car that you've just bought, you start to see it everywhere. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so that's why it's important to set goals for the unconscious mind. Your conscious mind is the goal setter, but your unconscious mind is the goal getter.
So basically, when you've set the goal, you can almost say, it's almost like plugging into your sat nav. You don't have to worry about it too much, because your subconscious will start gravitating you towards solutions or ways that are going to help you to achieve that goal.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's why goals are important, because it starts to focus the unconscious mind on what it needs to achieve.
So what does the unconscious mind do if there isn't a goal then?
Well, the unconscious mind needs to focus on something. So if it's not going to focus on a goal, it will probably focus on problems.
Right.
Okay. It has to focus on something. This is why goals are important, because they focus the mind on something that's positive. And if you haven't got something positive to focus on, it'll focus on something that's not positive.
So thinking about intentions then, if somebody sort of places their intention saying, I really want to achieve this with my life, and they've got a very strong direction and sense about where they're heading, but they still really want to be open to that intuition, going with the flow.
Yes.
Does intention create that very powerful signal for the subconscious as well?
Yes, it does. And if you set that intention in the correct way, you are then focusing the mind on what it wants to achieve. Okay, that's why visualization is very powerful, and that's why I do a lot of visualizations within sport, because it sets that intention of that positive outcome, which is what goals do.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you set the goal in the right way with the correct intention, and it fits in with the person's values and beliefs, you've got something really powerful there to work towards.
Right. So setting a goal in the right way then, just sort of run us through what setting a goal in the right way looks like or sounds like.
Yeah, sure, because there is a criteria on how to set a goal. And it is using the SMART criteria, which is used a lot out there. It's used in business. I use it all the time within sport. And what I'll do is I'll just go through each one. I'll just go through each acronym, and then I'll give you some examples on how to set a goal. So like what we were saying earlier on, make it very simple, make it very specific. Okay. So let's say, for example, somebody wants to lose weight. Yeah, that's quite common. It's quite a common goal that people set themselves at the beginning of the year. But that's just it. It's very ambiguous. Now, you know what I said right at the beginning? Set your goals as though you're actually telling it to a 6-year-old child. Yeah, and if that 6-year-old child understands the goal, then you are there. You've set that goal correctly. So let me give you an example. Some people will set a goal to lose weight. Now, if you said that to a child, the child would probably say, what does that mean? Lose weight with what? How much weight do you want to lose? Okay. So losing the weight is very simple. It's a very simple way of wording it. You've got to make it very specific as well. How much weight would you like to lose? Or more importantly, what dress size do you want to work towards? Or what weight do you want to work towards? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's got to be specific, and you get specificity by putting numbers in there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you an example. I weigh 11 stone 7 at the moment. Okay.
That's very brave of you to reveal that.
Thank you very much.
Not sure I'd reveal my weight right now after Christmas.
Okay, and let's say I want to get down to 11 stone 2. Okay. So my goal would be to get to 11 stone 2. Okay, so let's take that as an example, as a goal. So 11 stone 2. Now, so there's your simple and there's your specific, but you've also got to make your goal measurable. How do you know when you've achieved your goal? What's got to happen for you to know that you've achieved your goal? Now, in sport, that's easy because sports people have achieved their goal by winning, or they know they've achieved their goal because they've got that gold medal around the neck. So in sport, it's very easy. So what needs to happen for you to know that you have met the goal? Now, if it's weight loss, that's fine. You stand on the scales and you can see the weight going down. And the scales will tell you that I've achieved 11 stone 2. Okay, so I will know. So you've got to have something there that's measurable. Something there that you know you have achieved your goal. If it's money, you know that money's in the bank.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to set up your own business, you know, you've gone to the solicitor to set it up, you've gone to an accountant, and then you've got it there on paper that you now own a business.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's got to be something there to prove that you've achieved the goal.
I think that's a really good example of that business one, because, you know, setting up a business, you know, there's so much that can be interpreted in so many ways, and often many people make goals that are just too big, that require so many sub goals and so many sub pieces that make up that bigger one, that often it's the size of the goal in terms of what makes it up that can make it really challenging and therefore easier to fail, because actually there's so much that goes on within it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I work on this premises. If somebody consistently doesn't achieve their goals, then maybe the goal is too big. So my advice is to just make the goal a little bit smaller, so it feels like it's more achievable. Does that make sense?
But then there's two ways of thinking about big and achievable goals, because there's big as in the task, like the enormity of what's required in achieving that, like setting up a business. You know, where do you draw the line in terms of, is it just getting a legal entity, or is it having a business that's generating money? And obviously everything that's required in getting a business to generating revenue is enormous.
Yes.
And so, you know, you'd need to start, you know, breaking that down, but also then thinking about, and I'm sure you'll touch on this when we talk about the achievableness of something, but also, you know, sometimes big, huge, challenging, sexy goals that can almost make your eyes water can be really, you know, can be very exciting for some people, can't they? That kind
Absolutely,
of the bigness of the goal. You know, you know, something, I'm going to generate £1 million with my new business this year, and people are like going, "You what? You're mad." But sometimes that can work for some, can't it?
Absolutely, and this is sort of like going on to the R section of SMART, because it's all down to being realistic with your goal. Now, you just touched on that brilliantly there. What's realistic to one person may not be realistic to another. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You know, somebody setting up their own business and earning £100,000 a year or whatever, you know, that might really excite them and give them passion. But you could give that goal to somebody else, or somebody else will have that goal, and it might demotivate them because they just think it's too large.
Absolutely. When you have a really big, sexy goal, though, you ask yourself different questions because you've got this different goal in mind. And I've worked with people on goals, and they've sort of set when they've given me their goal of what they wanted to turn over in their business, for example. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I'm sure you could do more than that. But I wouldn't share that with them always.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they achieve it, and then afterwards they go, oh, I should have set it higher, because I always end up achieving what I set out to do.
Yes.
And
yes.
Do you find that as well, that people tend to achieve their goals and not much more beyond that? And actually, if they were a bit bolder, then they might not, there's that great saying, shoot for the moon and you might just get the stars, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I'm working with people goal setting, I do like to stretch them. So I sort of like getting to a place where they are comfortable with the goal that they've set. But it's like, right, let's just stretch that a little bit. Okay, not too much. Let's just stretch that goal a little bit. If somebody's goal is to win a silver medal at the Olympic Games, I say, right. Okay, you are comfortable with that, but let's go for gold. Okay, because if you aim for gold, your chances of getting a silver are actually strengthened.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay, and this is also which is really important, is always have a goal beyond the goal.
Right.
Okay, so once you've achieved that goal, have another goal. Because and I work with a lot of sports people around this. Let's say I'm working with an athlete and their goal is to make the 400-meter Olympic final. But what happens when they make the final?
Yeah, what next?
If they don't set a goal beyond the goal, i.e. when I've made the final, what do I want to achieve in the final? The mind will demotivate because there's no goal beyond the goal. Does that make sense?
So do you do the goal beyond the goal at the beginning, like when you're setting both goals, as it were? This is my first goal and then here's my second one, or do you wait till you've achieved it before setting the next one?
No, I always try to set more than one goal in a session with somebody.
Right, so they've almost got like successive goals.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay, once you've achieved that goal, what do you want to achieve after that? And what do you want to achieve after that? And what do you want to achieve after that?
And is that what you think makes a goal, achieving goals a lot more achievable, actually? And that's what enables you to consistently achieve your goals, is having almost like a route plan or a pathway of successive goals, and almost that leads to the ultimate goal at the end.
Yes, that's correct. A goal beyond the goal, beyond the goal, beyond the goal, that can lead to that ultimate goal,
which is die happy.
Yeah, that's correct.
Die with a smile on your face.
Die with a smile. The one thing I work with these sports people is I say to them, right, let's get you to a point that when you retire without regrets. So it's all about being the best that you can be. Now, if being the best that you can be means that either you're the best in the county, the best in the country, the best in the world, Olympic champion, that's great. But let's just make you the best that you can be so you retire without regrets. And I think that's why goal setting is important. Because, when you achieve a goal, it really boosts your confidence and self-esteem. Okay, and then that drives you on to achieve an even bigger goal, and then an even bigger goal, an even bigger goal. Look at Richard Branson. He's goal setting all the time. Okay, and now we've got to a point where we're sending people out into space. Now, who would have thought he'd have been doing that?
Yeah.
Years ago, So he's always setting goals and he's always stretching himself. So start off small, and when you achieve these small goals, you can make them more grandiose. So that's one way that you can do it. Also about goals here's the important thing. The goal has to be meaningful to you. Okay, goals can be quite selfish because they are all about you. But when the goal is meaningful to you, it gives you the passion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's got to be what you want as an individual.
Okay.
And
so it's not somebody else's goal, you mean?
No. See, here's the thing. I've had clients in the past who have lost direction in life because they may be doing a job that they don't want to do. What's happened is maybe a guardian, a parent has pushed them, the parent's goal is to make their son or daughter a doctor. Does that make sense? But that wasn't the son or daughter's goal. That was their parent's goal. Okay, so goals have to be for you. You cannot set goals for somebody else. They might not want to do it.
I know I had a bit of one of my own personal crises was when I was, in a good job, earning good money, and I wanted to do all that for my mum, take her on a holiday, really look after her and do stuff for her because I recognised the sacrifice that she did for me. And then when she died, I realised at work I completely flailed and lost all direction because I realised that the reason I was doing this stressful job with, good money, but ultimately it wasn't really adding meaning, because the meaning I got from my job was my mum, and she wasn't there anymore.
Okay, yeah,
And
that's it. So then all the motivation went away.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally lost all meaning, and I had to rediscover, find new work that had meaning for me, that I could really rally myself behind again. And that, took me a while, but that totally, for me, I see what you mean by having meaning behind your goal. That totally makes
Yes.
sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's got to be meaningful to you, because when it's meaningful to you, that passion will always be there.
Yeah,
And like the example you gave when your mum passed away, then the motivation went away with her.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so that left you in something that you didn't want to be in.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, because it wasn't as meaningful to you then. Okay, so it's got to be meaningful to you, and it's sort of like you sort of like got to be selfish with your goals in a way. But that doesn't mean to say that you've got to make sure that your goals support the people around you as well. So you do have to take other people into consideration with your goals. That's really important, because you want these people around you to support you within your goal.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got to include other people within your goal so they will support you to achieve it. It's also really important.
But it's interesting you mention other people, because there's a depending on who, the kind of people that are around you. Some people say share your goals with everybody around you so that you get that support. And yet, if you haven't got the right kind of personal network or support around you, then sometimes when you share them, you just get a load of grief and a load of, oh, you're never going to get that, blah, blah, and
Yeah,
people kind of dragging you down. And
yeah.
sometimes some people work better by having a goal in secret, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a great example, because I had that when I wanted to set up my own business about 9 years ago. People were saying to me, "Oh, come on, Adrian, be realistic. You can't do that. You can't set up your own business." And part of me felt a bit rejected by that. It's like, you're my friend. What are you talking about? But then the other part of me was like, you know what? I am going to bloody do this now because you're telling me that I can't.
Yeah,
So it was a bit of a motivator as well.
yeah.
But that's also really important. You've got to have people around you that will support you. Now, here's the thing. I actually got rid of a load of friends because they weren't supporting me. So, and those friends just fizzled away out of my life.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, sometimes you've got to get rid of people,
absolutely.
to keep that positivity there. So that's something that you really do need to look out for. But here's the other thing as well. Sometimes what that person is saying is they can't achieve your goal. You've set a goal, but what they're saying in their head is they can't achieve it, and that's why they're being negative towards the person that has set that goal.
It says more about them than about
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. It says more about them than it says about the person that set the goal.
And also, they're worried that if you go ahead and do this and then achieve it, that you will then almost show them up because they can't, but also it will distance you and the friendship may fade. And so
Yes.
they may be just doing it out of a bit of self-preservation
Yeah, yeah.
and to
Just
keep
want
the
to put,
status quo. And you find that a lot with people that are afraid of change, that kind of just want
yeah,
to keep things as is, don't you?
yeah, and they will say and do things to hook that person back.
Yeah,
To hook that person back in. So yeah, you got to be very careful with this. I work on this premise. Is the goal safe to you? Is it safe to others? Is it safe to the planet?
right.
Okay, so what I mean by that is if your goal is to, I don't know, invent another atomic bomb, you
Yeah.
won't get a lot of support with that, because it's not safe to you, it's not safe to the planet, it's not safe to others. But if your goal does help others, helps the planet, helps the people around you, then you'll get a lot of support around that goal.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, and here's the thing: if you take 100% responsibility for your goal, and I've certainly found this in the past, if you take 100% responsibility for achieving your goal, you'll find that people will come and help you. And I've always found that people have come into my life to help me achieve that goal at that moment in time. Now, once that goal is achieved, they may go out of my life again. My unconscious mind is sort of like picked them out, brought them in to help me. Goal is achieved, and then they've gone away. Okay, so people will come into your life to help you. You take 100% responsibility.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so yeah, so it's all about being realistic and being responsible,
right, okay,
and then you'll find all of the support around you.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and it is really important that you get the right people around you to support you. That's really important.
yeah, yeah,
And then you've got, when you're writing your goal down, put a time on it as well. Now, some people say to me, oh, this time next year, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, now, that's great, but when you look at that goal again in a week's time or a month's time, it's still this time next year.
Yeah.
So this time next year will never happen.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you put a date on that goal.
Yeah.
Something like, it is the 16th of January 2015, and I've got a net worth of £150,000.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's got a time there.
Yeah.
So the mind knows that it's got to work towards this time.
Yeah.
Okay, so ambiguous goals like this time next year don't work,
No.
because this time next year will never happen.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you need to have really clear indicators, where you can literally say, is this, am I in this position right now? Check the bank account, check my weight, check how many cigarettes I might be smoking a day now versus last year, whenever it was. That and to be able to know categorically, and somebody else can almost vet it for you, and it looks the same to them as it does to you.
Yes, that's correct.
Where that's a really great way of being able to say, have I or haven't I achieved this goal?
Yes. That's correct.
Okay. Now, one thing you touched on earlier was saying, you've got to make sure that your goals are aligned with your values.
Yes.
So could you just sort of expand a little bit on that? Because I'm sure that some people might hear that and go, what does he mean by that?
Well, this is all going back to the passion. We were saying before about it being meaningful. If your goal aligns with your values, it's something that you really want. It's something that sort of like drives you, because it's your values that drive you. It's your values that actually motivate you. And this is why goal setting is really good, because you do actually find whether it is the goal for you or not. Because you might think you want to achieve something, and then you write the goal down, and if it doesn't give you any passion whatsoever, it's not aligning with your values. So there'll be no motivation there. So finding something that really does align with your values. My top value is helping people. So I set up a business to help other people, and that gives me passion and drive and motivation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if I set up, let's say I set up a business to help people financially. Now, money is probably fifth in my values. Okay, so working on the financial side of things won't drive me as much, because it's quite a lot further down on the list of my values. Okay, so working something that you really love doing, and go back to when you was a kid. What did you love doing when you was a kid? And you'll probably find that that's where your passion comes from.
Now, the interesting thing, you mentioned money, and obviously there's a lot of people that might have money quite high up on their value system. They might have, success, recognition, all those things that are very kind of, that can be measured easily in monetary terms, because they have because somewhere within them they feel that the money is what's going to make them happy. And actually it's not the money that's going to make them happy, but they haven't figured that bit out yet. So, but deep down, your subconscious knows that money isn't the source of happiness.
Yes.
So, I can't help, that's where inner conflict and any kind of, the money doesn't make you smile in that. There's so much research that says, once you've earned more than $20,000 or £20,000, anything more than that, as long as you're not on the poverty line, money isn't what makes you happy. And surely we should be creating goals, setting goals for ourselves that ultimately make us smile, make us happy. And I can't help but think there are a lot of goals out there being set that are just taking people way off their spiritual path, because ultimately we're all here to just be blissfully happy, aren't we?
Yeah, I think I think we touched on this right at the beginning, is people tend to set goals that are around a state. So like, when I've earned so much money, then I'll be happy. Okay. And that's what people tend to do. And they do earn that much money, and they're still not happy, because what they've not worked on is their state.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's a great quote from a film, and I can't remember what it was called now, but it was like a Jamaican bobsleigh team.
Oh, yeah. Cool Runnings.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and there's a great line where their coach is chatting to one of the individuals, and he says to him, look, if you're not happy without the gold medal, you'll never be happy with the gold medal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's all about creating this energy. Now, let's talk about energy a little bit. You've got to create the right kind of energy to achieve your goal. So if I have to say to you, Alexia, tomorrow morning you're going to have £100,000 in your bank account, how does that make you feel right now?
Well, fantastic. And I'm not entirely sure how it's going to happen.
Okay, but your energy there was really uplifted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's £100,000 that you know is going to be in your bank account tomorrow. So you start to behave and act in a very different way. Your energy has changed. Now, what the important thing about goals is creating that energy. So let me backtrack a little bit. Achieving the goal won't give you the right energy to. Hold on, let me reword that. Got myself all confused here. You need the energy to achieve the goal.
I know what you're trying to say.
I don't. Yeah, okay.
You need the energy of having achieved the goal before you achieve the goal.
That's correct, yes.
So that you're basically going for the goal with the mindset that you've already got it.
Yes. So it's called act as if. So as if now.
Okay.
So you actually act as though you've achieved the goal already. And what that does is that creates that right energy for you to achieve the goal. Okay. There's a great quote by Muhammad Ali that said, before I could convince the world that I was the best, I had to convince myself that I was the best. So he had to create that energy within himself first, so he could actually then take that into the boxing world.
And I guess this is the kind of stuff that things like the law of attraction talk about.
Absolutely.
You need to create that right energy, because then you'll attract that into your world and therefore make it more likely to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I guess as part of that as well, when you try and sort of imagine that you have got it already, then you're going to try and activate every possible sense that you have.
Yes.
In doing that and having bright pictures and imagining, feeling it in your hands, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And the law of attraction, the law of attraction works really, really well. But what makes it work even better is taking action. Here's the thing about goals. You can set a goal and you can visualize as much as you like, but unless you take action, okay, you've got to take action to achieve the goal. Things won't just come to you if you just sit there and visualize it. No, they might do, but things will happen a lot quicker if you take action to achieve the goal. Does that make sense? So it's all about having the right energy and taking the right action.
Yeah.
And have fun with it as well.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun with my goals. I sort of I set goals that I know I'm going to achieve. Okay, it might be cheating a little bit, but it's nice to tick the things on your to-do list, isn't it?
Oh yeah, when I've done something and it wasn't on my list, I add it to my list and then tick it straight off.
Yeah. Because it's a completion, isn't it? And completions cause positive energy.
Right.
Okay, so when you start to tick your to-do list, you feel really good about yourself. That energy is there, that positive energy is there. So I set goals that I know I'm going to achieve, and I set really tough goals that I probably think I probably won't have achieved that goal this year, but I'm going to give it a go. It'll probably be the year after I'll achieve it, but let's just see what I can do this year. Now, I actually set myself a really tough goal last year, but I sort of did it in a 2-year plan. But actually, I ended up achieving the goal in 6 months.
Wow.
So you can surprise yourself when you set goals.
Yeah.
Things happen when things start to happen. They happen quickly because the universe will bring it to you. Okay, so a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I don't like to set goals because I don't know how I'm going to achieve it." I say that's okay. Just write the goal down, because at this precise moment in time, you have no idea how you're going to achieve it, but your conscious mind will help you get there.
Yeah.
So even though the goal may seem a bit impossible, that's okay. Write it down anyway.
And so you say writing it down. That's another important thing I think we haven't touched on, is the act of writing things down.
Yes.
That kind of makes it a bit more of a, it's almost like etching it into your subconscious mind, isn't it, when you write it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is a saying that says, if it's in your head, it's a dream. When it's on paper, it's a goal.
So how does that work with keyboards and iPads?
Well, all I do is I just get people to just type the goal into Word and print it off and just stick it on the wall.
So it's literally that act of externalizing the goal then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they say that, writing, journaling, that act of writing with the hand, and I'm just trying to sort of understand, the impact of technology and whether or not typing something, or even if somebody was to just verbalise it and have it automatically transcribed by their software. Does that count,
Yeah, it does. Anything that sort of like sparks that passion off. So anything that works. I do goals. I've not done it this year yet, but I've actually done my goals and I put them on a PowerPoint and I put music to them.
Oh.
And I put it on automatic. So I'm looking at these slides of my goals and I've got some very motivational music in the background.
Right.
So there's something you can do as well. Anything that sparks that passion, you do it, whether it's music, whether it's visualizations, whether it's pictures, whether it's words.
Because a lot of people like to do vision boards, don't they?
Yeah, vision boards are really, really good.
Yeah.
Very, very good for that.
Brilliant. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating, Adrian. Now, have you got any, just to wrap it up, what would be if somebody wanted us to just sit down now and start writing some really great goals for 2014, what would be what's a great thing to do to really sort of set your mind to getting some goals written down?
Yeah, sure. Well, the best thing to do is, this is what, so some people are stuck and sometimes say to me, I don't know what I want. So I ask them what I call the miracle question. This is the miracle question. If a miracle happened tomorrow and you woke up and you knew that no matter what you did, you would achieve all your goals, what would you see, hear and do that's different? What would be different for you? Okay. And just getting them to close their eyes and just answering that question, they get to see what it is that they want. It breaks through a lot of boundaries.
Right.
Okay, and they get to dream. Does that make sense? Or another question is, right, if I won the lottery tomorrow, what would I do with that money? And people will come up with goals from that question alone as well. So sometimes it's just a matter of just writing things down that you want. Now, here's the thing. You've got to word it that it's something that you want. A lot of people say to me, and I say, okay, what is it that you want? And they'll say, well, I don't want to put on weight. Now it's going, it's going back to that, the unconscious mind does not recognize a negative. So if I say, don't think of the blue sky, people think of the blue sky.
Yeah.
So always make it that it's what you want and not what you don't want.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, that we did mention before. It's always got to be positively stated, hasn't it?
Positively stated. And what I do is I get people to write down, and they will make a list of things that they don't want. And I say to them, right, okay, that's great. Now, if you don't want those things, what do you want instead? And that flips it over for them.
Yeah.
And it comes out with the positive.
Yeah.
So, and I say, right, now just focus on the positive list. Get rid of the I don'ts. So always make sure that you phrase it in the positive. Okay, that's something else that's really important. And that's one of the arguments why people don't achieve their goals, is because they're always focusing on what they don't want. And they get what they don't want.
Yeah.
And then come to me and say, well, I didn't achieve the goal.
Yeah.
I got the opposite. I said, because it was worded in the wrong way.
Yeah. So really, just sort of in a nutshell, then, it's basically make sure you're adhering to the SMART principles.
Yeah, absolutely. The SMART works really well.
Just let's go over those again, because you said simple and specific.
Simple and specific.
Yeah.
Measurable and meaningful to you. Act as if now you've achieved the goal.
Yeah.
Something else that's important, make goals in all areas of your life so there's a balance.
Yeah.
Don't just focus on one thing, focus on a number of things to bring a balance into your life.
Yeah.
That's really important. Make it realistic. And what I mean by that is the goal realistic to you?
And relevant's another word I heard to describe it as well.
Relevant. Yeah, absolutely. And make the goal responsible.
Right.
So people around you will support you. Put a time on the goal.
Yeah.
And always phrase the goal towards what it is that you want to achieve.
Right, it's that positive bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for that, Adrian. I think that's going to be... I feel almost compelled. I want to start writing some goals down now. So
Excellent.
That's certainly inspired me to sort of get back to goal setting. So I've been going on the whole intuition, intention path, but maybe I need to get a little bit more serious about my goal setting.
Yeah, just write them down.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Just write them down. Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming on, and hopefully, we'll be at the event, and hopefully some people will be joining us at the event in a few weeks.
Yes, and we will be doing goal setting at the event as well.
We will, won't we?
Yes, we will.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Adrian.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
So if that hasn't totally inspired you to get your pen out or get your iPad out and start writing down your goals, I don't know what will. Because now I feel completely inspired in getting my 2014 goals mapped out for the year. Now, going back to the event, if you're interested in coming to the big Head Trash Clear Out event, there are full details on the website. If you just go to the events section, it's happening in Nottingham over the weekend of the 15th and 16th of February, and it's going to be happening in the city centre, and it's £197 right now, £197, which is the early bird price, and that price is going to be live until the end of January. If you miss the deadline, then the price goes up. So if you can be decisive and really take a decision and really do something that's going to be great for your own headspace and your own sanity for 2014, then this is the event to come to, because we'll be doing loads of head trash clearance using the technique that I talk about. So if you want any help, support, or you want to pick my brains on any of this stuff, then I will be there to help you and to make sure that you get your head clear of trash. So hopefully I'll see you there, and if not, I'll see you next week on the podcast. Have a great week. Bye. You've just been listening to Alexia Leachman here on The Head Trash Show. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate you leaving a review here on iTunes. And don't forget to pop over to headtrash.com to get your copy of our free 5 Steps to Clearing Head Trash guide. So now stay tuned for upcoming episodes and more tips and how-tos for clearing your head trash and reclaiming your headspace. Until next time, bye for now.